think of my work as being more like folk art. People that are folk artists are self-trained artists without traditional. I didn't go to art school. I picked up my skills. I'm a self-taught person, and my shapes and my forms and stuff are how I interpret, like with the big bugs. You know, they're how I look at the insect world. They're not exact sculptures or interpretations, anatomically correct. Well, anatomically they're correct. They're just not entomologically perfect. But prior to working on the Big Bugs exhibit, I was doing other kinds of rustic works using trees in their natural state, either dried branches found in the forest that had interesting shapes and unique things about them, and putting them together to create my whether it was a piece of furniture or a garden structure. But it wasn't until I was approached by a botanical garden looking for me to create a sculpture exhibit for them specifically that I came up with the idea of making or representing or creating things that were animals, common animals we find in nature, like everything in the insect or arthropod world. I was making furniture and garden structures, and then I started making branched dinosaurs, and I became fairly well known as a guy that made life-size, so to speak, dinosaurs out of branches and saplings and stuff. And well, that wasn't going to really work in a botanic garden setting. And I got to thinking, had it been a zoo, I'd probably been doing lions and tigers and bears, oh my. But botanic gardens, I started thinking about subject matter, and I thought, well, what about the insect world? Because I thought that they maybe were like the hidden gardeners. They do all this work and we kind of take it for granted, or we see them as pests, or the word bug. They bug us. People that annoy us bug us. So they had, there's a lot of negative connotations. So what if I take some insects and put them on this, dinosaur-like scale? How would people interpret that? Well, how big are the big bugs? You have to start somewhere. So dimensionally, well, let's say the ants are 20 feet. Well, how do you build a 20-foot ant? I didn't have any idea. But still, there was a question, well, how big is the head, or the thorax, or the abdomen in relationship to the other parts? How tall is a 20-foot ant? There were all these things to answer. And that was the really exciting part. So I was building things that intrigued me, common, everyday, tiny little creatures, but building them on this super giant scale. And then how do you start doing that? Where do you begin? So that was the process. So they were fun to build, and then they were fun for people to look at. And then, like the ants being 20 foot tall, I knew they couldn't be carved out of solid logs because they'd weigh too much, and I'd need 1,000-year-old redwoods or something crazy like that. So the material, the size of the pieces dictated the materials to use, and then also not wanting to use stains or paints or anything like that. Wanted the woods to be in their natural state, and just some varnish maybe to bring out the colors. So I chose certain trees for certain reasons based upon the color of the wood, the texture of the grain, stuff like that. And the hardwoods that I use, which are black locust, black walnut, and red cedar, are all standing or fallen dead in the forest. And then the green saplings, all out of the willow family, are all like a very sustainable material, because everyone knows you cut back a willow and 10 more trees grow out of that cutoff. So I'm not doing any harm. That was important. Always been important to me that I had I'm doing something for with botanic gardens, and I'm also doing it with materials that are completely renewable, and I'm not killing anything. I'm not taking anything out of the forest. Not endangering any plants. My ant sculptures are made out of willow saplings, and then the eyes are carved out of red cedar, and the praying mantis is carved out of black locust wood. The dragonfly and damselflies are red cedar. And then I started using, just in the last few years, black walnuts. We have a spider that's black walnut. The total number of different subjects that I've done up until now is nearer to 20. But actively touring, there is approximately 13 different subjects. As far as the site planning goes, there are certain things that in any given landscape lend themselves better to displaying the pieces. I mean, with the dragonfly and the damselfly, obviously in having a water source to have them hover over is a natural environment for them. That's where we tend to see them. And then large open spaces for the ants and so on and so forth. But over the years it's really become much more of a collaborative effort with me and the host institutions. So I learned, in the process of making, these insects, these, super large insects, I did learn, I'm in more awe of them now than I think I ever was, because they're engineering marvels. And there's, the variety of species and all the roles that they play, and they live in a very careful balance, and the people that upset the balance is us. I feel really privileged to now realize that I made this exhibit, and I get to play this bigger, my job is, or what I do is much bigger than I even imagined it would turn into, which is to be the guy that made the sculptures that does achieve the goal of casting this wider net to, for a bigger audience in the community, get more people to come to the garden, and then maybe they're just going to enjoy a sunny day and the beauty of the place, but without realizing it, they're going to learn some things too. And then those that want to stick around a little longer, and their kids are going to come on the buses from school, and there's all kinds of educational programs. So yeah, I getting to play this a much bigger role than the one I had intended, and I'm really proud of that.